My guest today used to be Bill Bruford's drum tech. Now he is his band leader. Born in Germany, but now residing in the UK, he has carved out a unique career as a guitarist, composer, and educator. From his early days performing on German television to sharing the stage with jazz legends, he blends deep musicality with beautiful, playful humor and fearless genre crossing. His trio explores everything from jazz standards to classical reinterpretations and spontaneous improvisations. Welcome to this episode, Pete Roth. Roth, I should say, actually, right?
Well, yeah, Roth is what everybody seems to call me. But thank you for having me, Niels. Such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here. How are you doing, Pete?
You know, I'm doing very well. We right now is, the reason for us being here is we're on tour, playing music that is very just truly enjoyable. Also with two people who are truly enjoyable to play the music with. So yeah, life couldn't be much better at the moment. It'd be hard to describe anything, being more of a party really than this.
And that's actually nice to encounter somebody on your peak then, so to say. Yes, maybe the mountain will grow higher, but we're going to reflect a bit on how you got to this point. Obviously, we're going to talk about Bill and what he meant to you. I mentioned German television. You played folk music on German TV. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Volksmusik, the Hitparade der Volksmusik.
That's something completely different.
Well, because it was kind of it's a mime gig for starters, right? So you're not really performing on television at that point. It was a Saturday night show, which was very cool. And it was the first time, I think, when I was seeing the bigger industry behind it. Before that, I was obviously, started off in a school band, then had some friends over on Saturdays for rehearsal, as, I think probably most of us had at some point, occupying my parents' cellar where we carved out a room that, where some amps in it and, drum kit. And then we played local gigs, and then I played with some better bands in the local area, and some of them, they started doing recordings. But this was the first time where somebody said, okay, this is serious. There's a fee attached to this. There is you're going to be seen on television, playing your instrument. You have to learn the song, but it wasn't about the song really. I mean, it was just being a youthful face behind the Schlager singer. And that was basically that.
What did it do to you realizing, okay, this is actually a business? Because music, of course, is about emotion and sharing your expressions, right? But there's also the business. You said that was the first time I realized and saw the business. What did it do to you?
I think I realized that I don't know anything about that. I realized that so far I simply believed, and I think I'm coming from an era where you just believe if you work hard, things just happen. Right? This is kind of a natural progression. If you do your bit, everybody else does their bit. And that was my simple understanding of the world. And then all of a sudden you realize, no, there's so many moving parts. You have to do more than your bit. You have to be linked in, and you have to understand who is doing what, how and when, for you also to be able to fit in this jigsaw. And I think that sort of, at the very least, told me that there's a lot I don't know. So I started being aware. I said, it's at the beginning when you put your foot into something for the first time, it's often not so much that you have an epiphany, but you actually all of a sudden realize, oh, there's a new mountain I need to climb here, and it's important because it's in the way of the goal. So it really did that. It started that, and I was excited. I liked it. I looked at it and going, yeah, this is cool.
Okay,
I like showbiz
because it can go either way, right? Because the business side of it all can be a scary monster too, right? But you were like, okay, actually like this.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, very very much so. The truth of it is that at that time, I registered there's such a thing, but my musical goals were still, getting better on the instrument, were, kind of creating, writing, all of those things. They weren't yet, set on anything where needed a bigger or deeper music business knowledge, let's say. I just realized that that's coming up, and this will be the world and the people I will be talking to possibly. And first time you talk to a manager who then puts you up, an agent who then introduces you to this guy's manager, and then all of this, and you have people dealing with certain areas only of a show, and then beforehand it was all very self-made as bands are.
Before that, you've walked a path also, right? At 11, you started playing guitar, if I'm not incorrect, right?
Yes.
What made you pick up the guitar? What was the idea behind it? By chance, or somebody advised it to you? Or?
No, it was. I've come out of a very musical family, so my grandparents both played instruments on my dad's side, and they were very proficient. So my grandma had a career for a little while up till the 60s, maybe late 50s. And then it, settled into other jobs and did all of this. But they've always had something called house music. So they would have friends over on a Friday. And my sister, Martina, who is 11 months older than me. So we're kind of very similar age and experienced the similar stages of life, at the same time. We would sit on a table, and there would be friends of my grandparents over, and they would start singing songs, and my granddad would play a German sitar, and my grandma would play the guitar, and we would get some spoons. And we would clap along with the spoons, and that's how it all started. Must have been 5-6 years old then. And then in our house there were always music instruments. My dad was very musical, even though he was in the chemical industry, so he did something totally different. But he loved his music.
Did he play an instrument too?
He played beautifully piano. Very, very good piano player. But he played the guitar really well. He played bass. We had a beautiful drum kit sitting in our living room, an old organ. So he played saxophone. So he had loads of instruments, and he played them all to a good level. And he was an extremely good reader. So he could teach himself very quickly anything on any instrument because he understood the mechanics and understood the workings of music.
Was he passing that along at a young age? At you and your sister already by then, or?
I don't know if he actively did that. It was just all around. Music was always around. So he had a band, and we'd rehearse, and I would sit in the rehearsal and think, oh man, I wish I would play the guitar there, all of this. And, it definitely started a fire. But I don't think he necessarily taught in that sense. I don't think he taught me much in that sense. He was more like I could go to him and say, oh, what's happening here? And he would go and say, oh yeah, he's going like this. And then I would sit back in my room and practice.
But then you realize the spoons are not enough.
And the spoons,
I need more.
Enough. Yes, correct. So, age 11, something particular. By that time, I failed on any other instrument, right? Just to be clear. So piano, I was terrible at. I didn't practice. Probably one of the reasons for my dad sort of thought, okay, this is probably not the best way of him trying to, sit me down anywhere. I played drums quite a bit, and I enjoyed that very much. But then there was a guitar teacher at school that just arrived. There's a new music teacher, and he happened to play the guitar. And he set up a guitar club in the first couple of weeks he arrived. And he went, look, anybody wants to play the guitar, get yourself a guitar, ideally a nylon string, something to strum a few chords on, and we can start together. And a bunch of my mates signed up. So yeah, dude, that sounds good. But by that time, my parents were quite fed up with my disuse of any instrument. So they went, well, you can have a guitar, but you got to go earn it yourself. So they set up this through an autumn break that was in 1991 in October probably. There was sort of an autumn break at school. I worked 2 weeks as sort of a helper in a factory my parents were also at. So I kind of, got a minor job role, just to, like a T-boy type of thing, running all sorts of errands and things. And earned enough money to pay almost all of it, and then the rest of it was for Christmas. But I got it early because the lesson started early. So on the 7th, 1991, I officially started playing the guitar because my dad written the date on that guitar, and it stayed forever on.
Oh, wow.
And so, so that was a little bit of a strange moment. I have the exact day when I had my first, and it was a Mittenwald 3/4 nylon string acoustic guitar. And that was it. And the guy only stayed about 3 months at the school. I'm not sure what I learned from him. I don't think anything really. Not because of him, but he just didn't stay long enough. And that was it. And I was hooked.
But it's interesting because there's one other guy. I think it was Pablo van der Poel, Dutch guitar player. He also told told me like, oh, I had to pay for my first guitar. And he said that helped me because then I really wanted it. Did that happen with you too?
I truly believe that if you invested in something in whatever way, and if you make a clear, conscious decision, that's a very different approach to anything.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters really. It's not so much about music. I think in life in general, you can either commit to something or you don't, right? And very often being invested one way emotionally or being invested, financially, it definitely puts an incentive.
It's a good nudge, at least.
It's a good
right?
nudge. Yeah.
Okay, so you were hooked. You said. What did the hooked? What did it look like? Young Pete being hooked to the guitar.
I went nowhere without a guitar.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to school in the morning with my guitar, and we had 5-minute breaks and 20-minute breaks. I would sit down on those breaks and I would play. That's basically that. And I would come home and I would sit in my room, lean against that, a radiator on the room. I would lean against that, sit on the floor, and learn from a book with songs in it, just how to strum the songs, singing along, and that's how it all started. I would do this non-stop.
Funny, you haven't changed because you took your guitar to this. I picked you up at the venue where you're going to play, and we are at a different location now. You said, I'm going to take my guitar because maybe there's some time to play, right?
I do love playing. I do truly love playing. It's a place I feel most myself. Just exploring music, exploring the instrument. I feel like constantly learn. Every day I do something, think, oh, of course, why have I not done this before? And, learn about the instrument. And I do feel the guitar is a very complex instrument. It has layers. They're not necessarily immediately visible. Now, at the beginning you strum and it's, however many strings you strum, however many strings you fret at that time, that's what you use. And that's your one layer. And then all of a sudden there's a melodic layer. Okay, now you get 2 layers. And then you progress and, before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole and you're trying to figure out what Joe Pass does. And then life becomes very tricky.
So Joe Pass, when did Joe Pass enter your life?
So relatively late. So my early love for guitar was probably first Guns N' Roses, I guess. That's not true. Sorry, I'm totally lying. The very, very first love I had was Jimi Hendrix. Somebody gave me an album called Live at Winterland, which is probably one of those bootleggy sort of albums. Yeah. And he had a version of Red House on it, which was 11 or 12 minutes long, and it was way slower than he normally played it. And it's just spectacular. I used to listen to this over and over again. I think for 1 year, that was the only CD I owned, as it was in the 90s. And I would come from a small place in the Black Forest. You couldn't just go out and buy loads of albums. You had like one record store and they would hold a few records and, then you order them in and it takes a month or 2 and then you didn't even know if you liked it. So it was quite interesting. So Jimi Hendrix, Live at Winterland, followed by Gary Moore, Blues Alive, and Deep Purple, Made in Japan. Those were my 3 records I owned for a long time, and then a year or 2 later, Guns N' Roses came along and all that.
But you're playing along with it, or
jam all day long. I had this spot in the cellar, right? Talking about there was a hi-fi in there where my CD player was set, and it was brand new then CD. It was like amazing, and I would have tapes as well, and I would just jam along to it all day long. I mean, Gary Moore, Blues Alive, I probably could play the album backwards.
But in that small village you lived, could you find kindred spirits to play music with? Or that must be difficult also, right? If you're from an area where there's not many people, right?
It's quite a natural selection. There's always a few, right? And I didn't worry if they're good or bad. Right? There was no judgment in that sense. You just wanted to step in the same room and make a noise. That was good enough for me. And strangely enough, there were some absolute excellent people around now looking back. So, when, moving on a few years in school, we had a school band and the school was fantastic. They organized a lot of gigging for us and we actually had quite a bit of exposure. And they had a small school band where when I was, 11, 12, first entered, and then they had a higher up one, which was actually quite proficient, players in there. Many of them had for years lessons and they could play.
You have to move because we're in a room with,
sensor.
sensors.
No, it's not enough to move.
Oh, well, we'll just continue. Who needs perfection anyway, right?
Yeah. So he ended up, being quite good players around. And then when I was sort of 15, 16, I started meeting people from outside the school. And I started playing in bands from the next bigger town. There's a place called Karlsruhe, a little bit further down the road. And somebody seen us play on a gig, and they came up and said, "Hey, we need a guitarist who can solo over this stuff. Can you come?" And they were in their late 20s, early 30s. And I was maybe 14 or 15. So my parents were a bit, well, I'm not so sure about this, but they let me go anyway, which was very nice of them. And so I now started to meet other people, and there were some spectacular players around. Really, specifically for a 15-year-old me.
Yeah.
Was impressed by anybody who could play 2 chords in a row. Yeah.
But then did you think, okay, actually music can be something that I'm gonna do as a profession, or was it just?
It was the only thing.
Didn't you think about that?
It was the only thing. I don't think I had there was no vision beyond that.
Yeah.
I did, for my parents' sake, do like a short study, like an apprenticeship type of thing, in the chemical industry. So kind of, my dad knew something about that. So he went, "Well, why don't you do this just in case it all falls apart?" and I did that, but it was always, in 4 bands at the same time. I didn't take it all that serious.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have ever had any career in that. That would be would have been probably by now made redundant a few times for a lack of any interest.
Yeah, but it takes a fair amount of stubbornness and single-mindedness to achieve things, I suppose, right? I mean, if it's that clear, that's, and you don't have to think about it. That's actually bliss, I suppose, right? Because if you're in doubt, should I do it? Should I not? That didn't bother you then?
No, it didn't bother me at all. Interestingly enough, I think you're the first time anybody ever asked me that. Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever considered, no, nor did I consider that it couldn't work neither, but this also tells you that I'm coming from a very supportive upbringing.
Yeah.
Right. It tells you that there were no existential fears. There were there was nothing but support all the way through, really. So my dad passed away quite early. So my mom, after that, really allowed any choice to be heard. And she would advise, she would be not, a total maverick kind of, yeah, go, it'd be okay. She kind of got to think about this, but always with the view of how to make this work. Rather than all the reasons why I couldn't or shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's quite important. Most guests on the show, there's a few exemptions, but most of them tell me my parents help support me from the get go. I think that's more valuable than you can maybe even think of, right? That support. So you kind of can lean back, like if you have that support of your parents, like then everything's okay, right?
It is. It validates you. It validates your ideas.
Exactly.
If your parents thinking it's a stupid idea, you're ending up already with so much self-doubt.
Yeah.
And I don't need to tell you, you're a guitarist yourself. Self-doubt is more of that you don't need, right? This is already enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Enough of that, flying around when you're trying to play 2 notes straight in a row.
Yeah.
So, yes, no, I totally agree. Supportive friends, supportive, family, people that just understand you and your wacky ideas before they had any value, because you've not yet proven anything, right? Yeah. You've not played anyway yet. Nobody put £5 on a ticket and said, okay, I'm going to come and see you again. Yeah. So at that point, it's just a random idea, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, but we're talking about Joe Pass also a little bit. That's a big door to open, right? On the guitar. What did that mean to you, discovering his way of approaching the instrument?
So I had a guitar teacher when I was 17. I was self-taught till then. And then at one point I realized I'm at the end of what I can do. And I met this guy in Germany in my hometown called Harald Holt. And Harald was incredible. Again, for a small town, way, way too good a player. He was incredible. And he had this room that was, I don't know, maybe 3 times the size of this, full of albums, CDs, tapes, It was incredible. He knew every single one of them, knew every song on there. And he had, all his different students, and I would come in. And at one point he would say to me, Pete, it's all good. I was really into Steve Vai and Satriani at the time, like into rock guys. And, I absolutely loved that still today. They're amazing. Obviously, I've not grown out of this necessarily, just added to it. And, at that point, he went, you might want to hear a bit of Alvin Lee from 10 years after. And I've never heard of that in my life. So he goes, here's somebody playing a blues a bit different. Okay. And then he goes, well, have you heard of George Benson? And that's how he sort of, slowly, and then he made me a copy of Giblet's Gravy, which, at the time I couldn't believe my ears. I didn't realize you can play guitar like this. It was the coolest thing ever. And so while all my friends were driving around in town, and they had their car systems fitted, custom fitted to their souped up cars, and playing really loud German dance music, which is terrible. I had the same car, the same souped up car, playing Giblet's Gravy, singing along George Benson's solo to Billy's Bounce, and loved it. It was a lonely childhood. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So that opened that door. And then from there, obviously the floodgates were open. Now I'm in the jazz world. So he then gave me a bit of Parker, and then that didn't speak to me initially because I didn't like the sound quality. Okay. That's interesting how I'm now not interested in that at all. But at the time, coming from the heavy polished rock, it took me a little while to distinguish the sound quality from the quality of the music and my enjoyment within that, or the hearing the performance. But my ears also weren't ready then. I haven't yet established a taste for that type of music, I think. And so Parker wasn't quite immediately there, but then he gave me Virtuoso, the Virtuoso album, just the first one. He made me a sort of a tape of it and said, listen to this. And that was it. Joe Pass, the 3 Virtuoso albums, I must have listened to them for years. Just on rotation. I worn tapes out with that, and then I bought the CDs, and then, scratched them too much and rebought them. And I absolutely loved every single note he played. And I think Joe Pass still today is one of my deepest loves really I had for guitar.
The density of what he did is like amazing, right? Yeah. So at 17, you kind of entered that world. You went to conservatory after that?
I did.
At age 18, I suppose?
No.
Oh, later.
I was 22.
22,
I was 22. So there was a lot happening in between. Mainly, making sure I finish my apprenticeship, finish all of this, doing the studies. Then I ended up having to do a civil alternative service. So it's like the idea, I'd have to go to conscript army. It was still a thing in Germany. And I deferred that for a little while. And then at one point they came and said, look, be good if you come and go to the army. Then you have a chance to say, no, I really don't want to serve in the army. And that was what I did. But then I worked for the German Red Cross with disabled people and disabled children. And I absolutely loved that. And you do about, I must lie to you now, 9 months maybe of that. And then that was the time when I decided, look, I want to study guitar now. I want to study music, and I want to be really serious about it. And actually I was really interested in studying the instrument. I wasn't interested so much in studying the business, weirdly enough, thinking of a career. At that point, all I wanted to do is play better guitar. And so I left for England. And I went to a place, again, my guitar teacher, the same guy, he said to me, look, there's a guy called Guthrie Govan in England, and he teaches at this place called the Academy of Contemporary Music.
Who's Guthrie? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. See, you wouldn't have heard of him. Yeah. And so he's there, and there were a whole bunch of other really amazing guitarists teaching there. So my main teacher was a guy called Pete Roth there, and Pete is, which is still now very, very respectable session guitarist. Does very big sessions in England still. And at the time he was quite scarily good already. And so we had him, and then I met in England an Austrian guy called Stefan Rettenbacher. And Stefan went to Berkeley, and then he became a teacher there. He's only but maybe 8 years, 10 years older than me. And because my English wasn't that good when I first came to England, he sort of took me on the side and he helped me a bit. And he was extremely important to me as a mentor.
It must have been an adventure, right? From you going from the Black Forest, because moving abroad is a big step, right? What do you think? You were excited? Like
over the moon. Yeah, I couldn't wait to leave. My hometown is beautiful. It's a Baroque castle in the middle, which is absolutely stunning. And it's very, peaceful, I guess. And nothing ever happens. So you go to the one club or the one pub everybody goes to, and I can go 20 years later back there now. And the same 5 people sitting still on the same 5 chairs, talking about the same 5 issues. So nothing really ever happens. For me, that was never an option to stay there. I don't think so. I love going back. I love seeing my family, no question. But it was not at the time. It was too small.
So it was in London, right?
It's right. It's basically just underneath London. It's a small place called Guildford, which is about 100,000 citizens. It takes about 30 minutes to go to Waterloo to London, centre London.
So Guthrie was one of your teachers too there? Or?
Yeah, Guthrie came in. He did quite a bit of technique, obviously. That's kind of suits him. Then we had Stefan, who was doing a lot of everything, really. He was doing a lot of improvisation. I did probably all my formative chair stuff with him. So we went to hours and hours of private tutorials, really. He was very invested in his teaching, and, we should have had maybe an hour or 2 a week. And I remember him sometimes calling me. I would live opposite the campus, and he called me, Pete, are you around? Going, yeah. Okay, I've got 3 hours free. I'm coming over. And he would come into my flat. And he would go, okay, on the way in, okay, we do a satin door 1, 2, a 1 to D flat. And then that was it. Oh, and then there was this moment of, okay. And he was wonderful, really.
Those are great teachers, right?
Amazing.
If you're able to do that, like, okay. I had one teacher like that as well. He said, come 1 hour earlier every week. And, that's so great if somebody makes that effort, right?
Yes, and therefore you work harder, right? Because obviously now this is a give and take, right? Exactly. So you're both in it together, and you want to not let this person down after they invested the time. No, very much that. And that's how I met Bill, right? So Bill was a lecturer there too. And one day Bill came and said, look, to the whole class, I need somebody helping me out with a bit of drum teching. I'm driving a really nice car, and you're going up and down the motorway, and that's it. And a lot of the drummers applied, but at the end, it turns out that I probably was the only one that was there on time every week.
Really?
Never set up a drum kit in my life before that, and I would have argued I was the worst drum tech he ever had.
But timing is very important for drummers, right?
It's very important, and it's just being reliable, right? That's an interesting business skill. Like if you say you're somewhere at 6 o'clock, you're there at 6 o'clock. It's an interesting business skill to have. So
for many musicians, that's actually super difficult, right?
Very difficult, yes.
So, okay, you had the best timing of all of everybody.
Yeah, at least in turning up for the classes. Yeah, Bill would teach a class on, I think it was music culture. It was very interesting, great class, and it was in a big lecture theatre. And that was spectacular just to be in the same room at the time. I mean, 21, 22, and I only ever heard of Bill from magazines and from, I had no idea, what it would be like being in the same room. That was cool.
So at one point you were like, okay, I might not be the best drum tech, but I kind of also play guitar, or how? Because you didn't get to play music together instantly, right?
No, not at all. No. I was basically just around, getting introduced, weirdly enough, to every musician that's ever lived in England, because Bill obviously, rubs a lot of shoulders with a lot of people, plays, in the time with the Earthwork. He was in a reincarnation of Earthworks at a time with Scott Hamilton, I think, with Mark Hodges, and with Tim Garland on saxophone. That was the quartet, and Bill on drums. And then Mark Hodges and Scott left, and Quillem Simcock and Lawrence Cockle came in. And so, it was nice to meet those people. I mean, Quillem is a year out in age, so he kind of, it's the same. So he would, you would tell me about the scene, and then Lawrence Cockle, who was so he's a bass player, British bass player, extremely talented. And he would tell me a lot what's going on, and we then started playing. Every now and then there was something where I could sort of dip my toe in, and Bill was extremely generous, in just sharing how the business works. We listened to a lot of music in the car. We would clap out rhythms. It was actually the best study you could possibly think of. Yeah,
can you share a few takeaways that you took from him? What you learned from him?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, how much time you got? So Bill is a natural teacher. I think this. I don't think he knows that necessarily, but that he is a natural sharer of information. He loves an exchange of information, and so we share a love for history. So there's a lot of that going on. We share a love for language. So he, knows probably most of the roots and the beginnings, where languages actually come, or where words actually come from, and what their exact meaning is. And he's very good with this. And one of the big things I learned from him is to be accurate, specifically when dealing with business things, to be really accurate. That's a fantastic takeaway. But you're probably thinking musically, you're probably thinking, okay,
whatever, yeah.
So, in this, Bill has an exceptional ability to refuse to do either what's expected or what would be the ordinary. And with that, I don't think I've seen a bigger risk taker in that sense, where it just go, I don't care if this is going to sell, because this is the path I need to go. And there was a real lesson in this where, as a young player, and I'm sure you may have experienced this, I was jumping from this exciting thing over there to this exciting thing over there, and just getting more and more frustrated about not actually reaching any of those. So I'm looking at a specialist over there and thinking, I need to get a bit of this, and another specialist over there. And it actually got me to a point where in the end I was going nowhere with my guitar playing and my music or my artistry. And Bill was the first person who was basically no compromises. Right? It's like, this is how I drum, this is how I sound, and this is what my band needs to sound like. And this is important to me, that this is not another band. It's important to me. It's not just another bit of noise. And specifically not if it's just done to please something or somebody. So very often just avoiding the obvious, thinking way beyond that, and then revisiting it and going even further. And then once you're there, thinking, how far can we push this? It's an amazing ability, which I think he does. Probably most things he does in life, he's not easily satisfied with an immediate outcome. I don't think so.
It seems in line with the whole story, that because he said, I'm retired a few years back, right? I'm not touching the drumsticks anymore. I'm done, and I'm happy with that I stopped. But tell me, how did it came about that did you convince him, or was it more natural than that, a process, or what happened that he decided, I'm going to be in a Pete Roth trio?
Well, it's a funny story, this. So originally, Bill and me stayed in touch.
Yeah.
And again, Bill is very good, I think, with staying in touch in general. And he lives not far from me. He lives about a half an hour drive. And every now and then, every 6 months, over the period of maybe 15 years, we would meet up for a coffee and putting the world to right. What you do and what you're up to and so forth. And I worked at universities at the time. I worked at Chichester University and Goldsmiths University in London. And I also worked at I also worked at the ACM, where I studied before, and was the head of their master's degree program. And so we had an academic sort of alignment, where Bill was studying for his PhD, and we would meet up, and he would kind of tell me where he's at with this, and I would be at the university, and there would be loads of alignments. And
that's something else in the Pete Roth Academy, right? Or that was at the same time that you started that.
So I started Roth Academy after I did. After I finished with being a lecturer at university. I think I still had Chichester, a position at Chichester University at the time, but I stopped at the ACM in 2017 or 18 after about 15 years being there on and off. And then I was at the ICMP a little bit in London, which is basically all the same. They're all the same place, basically. They're sort of academy colleges type of places who are all very much set up in the same way. And I enjoyed that. I loved the teaching. Thoroughly loved that exchange with young people and consistently being on the forefront of what everybody listens to. It's a wonderful thing. I think young people are amazing, absolutely amazing. And so I just, it was other things were becoming more predominant, and I got very busy as a player. So I ended up having something I had to give. And so Bill was doing that, and we were meeting up every 6 months. And then at one point he called me up and said, "Oh, Pete, I've just moved, even a bit closer to you. Do you want to come over and we have a cup of coffee? I'll show you the new house. And after that, great. So we met up, and in that conversation, he said, well, why don't we go and have a jam? And so it turned out that he had picked up the drums. And I think he told this story a few times, and so I hope he will forgive me to tell this on his behalf. He just sort of, for years apparently walked by the drum kit that was set up in his studio, and it didn't really bother him. He was done with it. Mm-hmm. And I believe he experienced something like sort of a small burnout at the time. He just had enough a bit of the life on the road and of the constant, that treadmill, you can find yourself on, and enjoyed his academic life, the writing. He's, something I think he's very passionate about. And so he ended up, one day walking by, and it just sort of wonder what happens. And as it is, it's just that light switch got switched back on. Mm. And so when we first met, it was really important to him that we all understand he is retired. Mm. It was really important. He was like, look, we're just jamming here. So, okay. So
and you were like, yeah.
Well, to be fair, knowing Bill, right? It was one of those things where, we did do to full disclosure, we did do a couple of gigs before, at a small jazz club in, just outside London in 2007, maybe, or something, or 2006. So while he was still an active player, way before. And, so we had a bit of a feel of what it could be like. And then, we met, and, he said, bass player, and said, oh yeah, I'm just touring. We were on a tour with a big show all across England. And there's a fantastic bass player on there called Mike Pratt. He's a great upright bass player, but also electric. So we can, you can see what fits best. Mm-hmm. And so we, got together and started jamming. And that was it really for a little while. All we did was like what you do when you're 12 years old. You meet your friends, you pick a few tunes, and you just play, and there's no judgment. There's no goal at the end of this. There's no reason other than the music.
Yeah, but it's actually a nice way to spend time, right? Together.
It was magical. Yeah. But it still is, weirdly enough. I don't think we've fully grown out of this. It was a wonderful way of doing anything. There was, we played through, I don't know, many standards just for fun, just trying things out. And again, we didn't need to have a repertoire. So we didn't need to repeat anything. So, every week, or every 2 weeks, whichever way, we seemed fit. And at time, we'd come together for 90 minutes, no more than that, in an hour and a half, in a place, play, have a coffee afterwards, a bit of a laugh, and go home. Mm. And that was it really. And that was a real beautiful thing. And so we got to know each other really intimately, musically, but also got to know each other as humans properly, because we shared a laugh afterwards, and we shared, a little bit of ourselves. And I think that really helped the formation. And maybe, I don't know really, I'm not Bill, helped him to feel, okay, this is something I might be able to do and feel positive about it, feel good about it.
So, but still, that's a step from just meeting up every now and then and spending 90 minutes making music, having a coffee, to actually thinking, oh, let's tour. That's another thing, right?
Well, and this is also a new thing. So this is basically what happened was we, at one point, an old friend of mine, bass player, ran a festival at the Isle of Wight. And he goes, oh, Pete, do you want to come with your band? And I had a different band. I toured with a whole bunch of different people. I made some albums for MGP Records in London, with my great friend Nicholas Meyer, which you might know. He was in the Jeff Beck band for many years. Mm-hmm. And so him and me, we're very close friends, and we played. And I think my friend on the Isle of Wight thought, oh, it's a good idea maybe to have something like this. He wasn't quite sure what, but he liked one of the albums I made, and said, oh, if you bring something like that, be okay. So I went in a rehearsal and I said, a friend of mine offers us a gig. It's under my name. So there's no, there's going to be no press on anything whatsoever. Does anybody fancy doing it? And there was a bit of umming and eyeing, and then Bill went, well, why not? Let's give it a go. Let's try it. And I think that sort of started, and that's now nearly 2 years ago, weirdly enough. So that was the first time we publicly appeared. And then there was nothing for 6 months or 8 months. So that was it. That was what we did. And then, we probably had a summer break, did something else, came back in autumn, played a bit more. And then, why don't we do another one? And I think for the first year, we must have done three really, really small gigs. then all of a sudden there's kind of, well, why don't we see if we can put a few in a row just to give us a bit of a focus. And then next thing you know is, we had, this leads us already into last year, September really, October, we started a run of about 10 gigs last year. And then we've done this year maybe another 12 gigs. That's all we've really done so far. So it's a very new thing. And now we are out on small tours in a minute, 3 days here. We just come back from Portugal. Then we're going to do some nice stuff in Italy, and we go to San Sebastian in Spain. And then we're going to come back to do a Scandinavian tour, about 10 days, I think it's 7 dates, but it's 10 days we're out there. And then we're going to do and then we go to Japan, which is very exciting. We're going to play Osaka.
But it's everything without pressure, I suppose, right? That seems to be very important.
Very, very much so, yeah. And I think, there's pressure on, anybody. This is true for any musician. You try your best, right? You want to do a good, you care deeply about the noise you're making. That's for sure. And the pressure is, I think, an internal pressure that is possibly simply the pressure you need. I think that's not the normal pressure you do. You step on a stage and you now enter the contract with the audience that you do something they might not entirely hate. And you also enter the contract with your fellow musicians of doing something that supports each other and that makes each other, do their best or bring their best game. And so that pressure obviously is probably there, but I don't think there's any other pressure really on it. We've no album, we've got not even merchandise. We made a very conscientious decision. There's nothing at the moment, and this may change. But when it changes, it will be all on a very palatable way, in a very doable and feasible scale, I think, and that makes it all very enjoyable. It's like, I don't know, you're 12 years old, with your mates. Oh yeah, so we do an album. Yeah, let's see if we can find a mate studio and do something.
And then that's why you say, I'm feeling really, really good.
Yeah, and that's why I say I feel really good. Yes, it is really spectacular. And Bill is there to lead us through all of this. He's been there. He's an incredible mentor. He's an incredible person. Like, he's really invested, extremely understanding, extremely patient. Specifically with things we don't know, I've done no traveling under my own name, to Japan, so there's questions I can't ask because I don't know that to ask. And Bill is always there, goes, okay, let's do this, do like this, and then it will be really easy and we have all a great time.
That's great, man, to have a mentor like that. You said there is no album. Will there be one, or don't know yet?
I think it's inevitable that there will be something. I do believe they record in Paris from where we're tomorrow anyway. That doesn't have a choice. That's in part of the contract. What happens to that recording, we'll see. I think it's a DVD recording. We did record at some other places where there's some stuff flying around, so it could be maybe putting a few things together. We know that in Japan it will be recorded. So it's inevitable. San Sebastian, we had to sign the television rights away, so I believe something will be recorded there. So yes, there will be something.
But how big a part of your life is this nowadays? Because obviously this is not still the only. What else are you currently doing?
Okay. Wow. So I like to keep busy. So we just finished, to no fault of our own, a 2-year stretch with a big show in England, and that's something I always do. I play a session with people. I'm still in a house band at a jazz club in Kingston, where we play regularly, and there's some of the jazz greats from England really, and from other countries actually. Vasily Xenopoulos, Greek, and people like this coming in and playing, and we play together, which is very cool. I love that very much. And then I also run 2 businesses. One of them is called Kidstruments, and Kidstruments is a modular content for classroom teaching, music classroom teaching for the early learning stages. So we're looking at, in England, they call it the key stages, where, from the age of 5 to 7 is one key stage, and then from 7 to 9 and 9 to 11, that's the 3 early key stages, primary school. And so we've basically filmed about 1,000 videos, helping teachers to have professional musicians stepping into the classroom and explaining what, a particular thing in music might be, what dynamics are, or what specific styles of music are, or what a specific instrument does. And they're all very interactive. They're all to do with activities. And having children like yourself, I got all of a sudden really invested in that, thinking you need to start there. You can't. I was always complaining about the standard of the universities, right? So I think every university teacher does this, so I'm not unique there. But I was saying, well, we should have really a higher bar, we should do all of those things, and it should be meritocracy, all of those big words. And then you get older, and you have children, you realize, no, you can't do that. The system's got to work overall, and you got to then help, and you got to invest your own time and your own energy to help this to be better. And that's where Kindred comes from. We're saying, okay, if we do this very early on, and kids can hear, actually there's a great ear training program on there for young children.
Oh, nice. I'm going to check it out. I have a 5-year-old. So he
fantastic.
Might start.
Absolutely. And at the same time, there's some early sight reading on there where we start, with very simple things like just color coding, and then the colors go on the stave, and then the colors removed, and then it's the dot, and so forth, so it's kind of really progressive, in order to just learn things. We have a game on there called Musical Cabbage. So you spell words on the stave, and you have to say what the words are. Little things like this. And so it's very interactive. It's great fun, and it's a real passion of mine. And then there's Roth Academy, which is something, which is an adult learning, where we basically educate from players to players, we call it. So we have beautiful people like Andlaw, fantastic jazz guitarist. We've done a technique course on there, or Carter Arrington, you might know from the Kirk Covington band, American player who does a great one on groove playing and on general anything to do with timekeeping. With Mark Lettieri, people like this. Nicholas Meyer also, did some stuff, and Giorgio Sergi, and some real beautiful players. They show what they do and how they do it, but they're all session players first, and then they may have become artists. So to me that was important, because there's a working tool you need. That's not the same tool necessarily that gets you to be an artist. It's not exclusive, but it's not the same. And so for me it was important to have that angle on it. I needed people, they haven't just figured something out that worked for them because of how they're built, but somebody that can make whatever they have and can manage to fit that in different ways. And so that's a slight different angle.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because that's also interesting with music, if you're able to do that, because of course it's about expression, but sometimes it's just somebody who asks you something, right? Can you do this? And you might not feel it instantly, but you have to make it feel. Or something, right? Yeah.
It's very much that. And also, I think when the people that look for education, look for teaching, like myself too, I love rummaging around in a book or on YouTube or anywhere, and kind of say, oh, this is cool. This is what Gillard Hexman does. Okay, I'll steal a bit of this. Obviously, when you look for this, they're very open-minded already, very often. And so for me, that was the people I think, they're right for us, for what we do. People, we have an open, broad mind to music, and they understand that, some things are skill based. That's what you need to do, and some things are artistic choices.
We can start a whole new conversation about that, but maybe the next tour.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, happy to come back.
For now, thanks so much, Pete Roth, for being my guest, and also listeners, thanks for listening.
Well, Niels, thank you so much for having me, and good luck with your podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.